Hey everyone, in this video you're going to learn how to model a low poly style plane. This is part of a larger course that I'm building, but I wanted to release some of the content for free early to sort of tease it and hopefully encourage you to buy the course when it is available. So thanks for watching. Let's get into the tutorial. In this video, I'm going to base my plane on this Red Bull plane here. They have these planes that they use for flight competitions, and I thought that would be a good, nice, maneuverable plane. I don't really know much about airplanes, so I figured I would start with something I knew would work for sure and use that as a baseline. So, for example, in the game, I'm actually using this top speed as a reference point, because otherwise I wouldn't really know how fast a nice, quick, speedy airplane like this would be. So this is just the Air Race Red Bull website that I'm at. If you want to do schematics for an airplane, I would encourage you to just head over to Google and you can type in something like, this is called the Edge 540, it says here somewhere, but Edge 540 schematics. If you search for that and you go to images, you'll probably see a number of different schematics. In this case, I can kind of click on this one, and this was something that I found. It's on Pinterest, whatever. There's lots of these schematics. If you want to do some other kind of plane, then the technique will still apply. Now, because I don't have the rights to share this image and it wasn't clear where it came from, I made my own version of it that you can download. The links are in the description. So, oops, let me back out of this. So I have Blender version 2.8 open right here, and this is the starting scene. So the first thing I'm going to have you do is left click on this, shift click on this, and then you can hit the X key and click delete. We'll keep the cube, and we will insert our reference images. So we're going to hit Shift A, and then that's our add menu. You can also do that from up here and click on the add menu. We're going to add a reference image, and we're going to start with the stunt plane right. I have a couple others in here. You can ignore those. You'll just have these three. Okay, actually, let's undo that. I'm going to do Control Z. I want to be viewing this from the right. So I can either hit 3 on my number pad, or you can hit the tilde key. That's the one that's right below the escape key. And then you should be able to choose right from this little wheel here. So now I'm going to re-import that. So I'll do Shift A to add. We'll add a reference, and I'll do stunt plane right and load the reference image. So now it's on the right plane. So I'm also going to do that for top. So I'll do the tilde key again, go to the top, and I want to add a reference image. So add image reference, and we want to do top. And then one more, I want to go to the front view. So tilde front, and add image reference front. Okay, so these are all placed. I need to, of course, name them. So this one's called front underscore ref. I'm going to call this one top ref, and this one right ref. So now what this will allow us to do is work on this plane from the different angles and make sure that we can see and make sure that all these different sizes are roughly correct. So what you can actually do here is click on each one of these, and we can go into, I think it's in viewport display. We can say in front, which means it'll always show up in front, which can be helpful. But we don't want it to be perfectly visible all the time. So we have to go into here, I believe, the context. And then, yeah, then we go under empty here, we go to use alpha, and we want to change our transparency to maybe like 0.5. So I'll do the same thing here. So since I'm already in here, I'll turn on use alpha, and I'll set this to 0.5, and then go back to this box one, the object context, and choose under viewport display in front. And then the same thing here, I'm going to change it to in front, and then go to this object data, use alpha 0.5. Okay, so now we have a little bit more visibility. This will really help as we're trying to model these things. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to go to the top view and click on, it looks like because I have these in front, they may be a problem. Well, we'll figure out if that's a problem or not. I'm going to hide those three just to start. Click on this cube, double click here to rename it, and I'm going to rename it body, because this is going to be our airplane body. Now we're going to be mirroring everything we do over the basically in this direction, left to right along the x-axis. So I'm going to hit tab to go into edit mode, and then we're going to go into face select mode. So up here in edit mode, or you can hit the 3 key. 1, 2, and 3 switch between these different modes. And then I'm going to move this. So if you hit the N key, it opens up this menu. And I want this in global space to be at 0. So this is just going to be right on that x equals 0 axis. And then I'll hit X to delete the faces. So this way, what I have is basically a box that we can modify and move along the x-axis, but we will be able to add a modifier. So I'll click on this little wrench icon, and we can add the mirror modifier. And that's going to by default choose the x-axis to mirror over. So everything we do, like if I were to take this and move it, it's going to just modify it and mirror it over the x-axis. Okay, so now we want to take our, probably we'll start with the right ref. And I'm going to make sure I view this from the right. If you're not working in right orthographic, then this isn't going to work well. If you're in perspective mode, like if I switch into perspective and started editing, that I used the 5 key in on my number pad to do that, then it's not good. So make sure that up here it says orthographic, and you'll be able to tell the difference because you'll see the grid. Oh, actually, so I need to hop out here, and I'll go back into right orthographic, and I'm gonna hit the G key to move this, and then I'm gonna hit Y to lock it onto the y-axis. And I want this to go right up to the front of this, not past this cone here. And then I'll do the same thing here. I'll switch back to right. I'm gonna G, Y, and move this until it hits pretty much the back of this plane. And I'm going to do that here as well. Use the 3 key that time. And I want to move this with G and then hit Z to sort of lock it there. And then the last one I want to do G and Z. Well, probably here. I'll start here because what I'm going to do is extrude it so that this wing will actually be coming out of here. It won't be part of the same shape. All right, so we have a roughly the size of our plane shape here. So at this point, what I like to do is hit Control R, and then this is going to allow you to add edge loops. So I'm going to just make sure you hover not like along this edge, but along this edge, and it'll show this yellow line. And then you can move it over and we're going to create one like right here maybe. We'll create another one by hitting Control R again, and maybe right here, Control R, click, and then move it over here. Control R, click, right here. Control R, click, and we'll do one right there. Control R, click, and like right there. Control R. I'm not sure how much detail we need back here actually. So I'm going to right click and I'm going to Control Z to undo that one. We'll come back. Okay, so now I have these shapes right here, and what I'll do is I'll go back into that right view, and I'm going to sort of drag these vertices down. So we're going to switch into vertex mode, and I'm going to click this icon, the show X-ray, because that makes it so that when we select both of them, as opposed to normally, if this is off, if I do a box select, then it doesn't select both. It just selects the one in front. So what I'm doing for that box select is I'm just left clicking and dragging, by the way. So I'm going to do that, and what I'll do is just sort of move all of these with the G key and then the Y key to, sorry, not the Y key, the Z key. So that'll move it down. So you can see I'm hitting G, Z, and just kind of trying to move this along and fit the outline here. G, Z, that one's fine. G, Z. This one, I may not have needed this one here, so we'll find out in a minute. G, Z, I'm going to move this down just to the base here. G, Z, to move this up. Just kind of follow the bottom of the plane. Now it looks like I kind of missed one here. I want to make this go a little lower, so I'm going to do Control R again and probably put it about there, and then G, Z to move this. Okay, so now we have a decent looking plane. The only thing that's weird is going to be this. I'm going to select this and then do a GZ and just kind of like line it up with the rest here. We can come in and fix that if we need to later. So this is pretty good from the right side. Now I'm going to go to I'll hide that and I'll go to the top with this I symbol over here. And we will click the tilde and go to the top. And then we want to do the same idea along this body here. But it's a little tricky because we don't want to necessarily go the entire width out, because it's going to be a bit wider. Just to show you what I'm talking about here. If I view this from the front, it's a little narrower at the top than it is at the bottom. So it would probably make sense to take all of these from the front view, and then I'm going to hit G, X, and line it up, at least most of these, with sort of this shoulder of the plane, and then we'll extrude out a bit to make it look more like barrel shaped. And then this one, I would say, probably needs to go in a bit. So I'll go to the front again, tilde front. I'll just select this. I'll do a G and an X and move that here. All right, so now we've got sort of this plane that's starting to take shape a bit more. So I'm going to extrude a little bit from the side. So to do that properly, let me hide the front really quick. I'll hide both of them. And I'm going to switch into face mode. And then I want to select probably, I might have gone too soon with this this fix. So I'll show you a way you can actually undo something like that. So we'll probably come in and move that back, but I think it's going to mess up my extrude. So this, if you look and see, okay, so this is along the x-axis. What is the x value? I'm going to select this, Control C to copy it, and then I'm going to choose this one and then just paste that value in here. So now we're back out to where we were. All right, so now I want to select all of these faces. So I'm going to select the face mode again, and then you can either manually select them all, or you can go up to select similar, and you can do similar coplanar. This option will select all of the ones on the side, and you can just make sure that you've got that right. Then I'm going to do an extrude, but let's first turn on the front ref, and then I'll switch into front view with these selected, and then I'll hit E to extrude, and I'll extrude about out to here, and then I can scale it down a bit, and that should make things a little bit smoother. Oh, that didn't work. So yeah, that's not the result I was looking for. So I'm going to hit Control Z to undo that. And instead, what I'll probably do is just move down the edges. So maybe what we can do here, we can keep these selected, and then we can just scale it with only the Z axis. So if you hit Z, then you can scale it, and then that looks a little better. That's probably about right. Somewhere in between, it looks like I'm doing about 0.45. If you look up in the top left corner, you can see that number changing, and I'm probably going to do around 0.43. It'll look different for your plane, of course, but that's roughly what we're trying to do. So now we have this shape looking pretty decent. We can come in and look at the top now. So I'll look at the top, and it looks like what I have here is it's got the right idea, but it's not placed well along this edge here. So we can do that probably most easily by just editing the vertices. We might be able to do this with some sort of like this tool up here, the proportional editing tool, but you never know what you're going to get. Sometimes it modifies too many things at once. Oh, did not mean to do that. Okay, shift and then middle click to do that. All right. So I'm going to just make sure I'm still in this X-ray mode, and I'm going to move a bunch of these along the X-axis by clicking X. Oops, X. And you know what? For the next one, what I might do is switch into up here. You can choose your pivot point. I'm going to choose the 3D cursor pivot point, and make sure that your cursor is here. If it's not, you can do Shift C, and that'll reset your cursor. And then I'm going to select both of these with the box select, and I'm going to hit S to scale, and I'm going to hit X to scale only the X-axis, and then bring this in like that. So I'm going to do the same thing here, and I'm going to hit S, X, and then I'm going to bring it in like that. So that's going to keep the proportions for us, which is nice. Same thing here, SX. Gets a little easier when you get closer to the origin. SX. SX. Now, you don't have to worry about these things being perfectly aligned in a straight line. And the reason you don't is because with this low poly style, it sometimes actually makes it look a little better if they're not perfectly aligned, because you get some reflections off of those flat surfaces in a way that you wouldn't otherwise. So SX for that last one. All right, so that's probably pretty good. And if I switch back and look at this plane kind of for reference, it doesn't have a great way for me to see everything, but you could kind of see for a minute there that it has kind of a flat, not completely barrel shaped looking, I don't even know, body. All right, so now I'm pretty happy with how this body looks at this point. So I'm going to just make a minor modification. I'm going to click on this. I'm going to hit G and X and just kind of slide it in a little bit. And then you can probably move this down, hit G, and actually hit escape. I'm going to do one more edge loop here. Control R to make this show up. Click, and then you can right click to get out of that. And then we're going to do G and Z to kind of tuck this down a little bit. So that what that'll do is just make it look a little bit more like maybe it could be a cockpit. So if we want to come in and put a character in there later, we can. And maybe move this out G, X just a tiny bit. All right, so that looks pretty good to me. So if I tab out of edit mode, then you can see what this looks like. And you can even switch into this viewport shading mode. And I'll hide the top reference so you can see it well. And, oh, I'm in the wrong one, sorry. This one, this second one. If you click this drop down, you can go into matte cap. And if you click on this ball, you can choose which one it shows up as. I like either looking at it as metallic or possibly, I think there was one that looked more plastic. So that kind of gives you an idea of where your shapes are, what it'll look like. It's not super low poly looking yet, but we'll be able to change that, and I'll show you how to do that in a bit. Okay, so I'm going to switch back into studio mode. All right, so we have this body, and we are ready to start moving on to the other parts. So let's take a look at probably the wings next. So the wing, we're going to want to start and do it from the right side because it has this shape here. This is the typical shape of an airplane wing. So I'm going to switch into the right view. And remember, if you forgot, it's the tilde key. You can go here or you can use your number pad. So shifting and middle clicking to pan. Then I'm going to create a new object and I'm going to place it right here. So let's create with this. We're going to go to add mesh and we'll add a, let's see, what do we want to do? I think what I'll do here is I'll add a plane and then we can modify that. So this is a different way of doing things. So we have this plane here. It's not in the right orientation right now, but I'm going to hit tab to go into edit mode. I'm going to hit R to rotate and then hit Y to rotate around just the Y axis. And then I'm going to type in 90 to go in 90 degrees. And then what I want is for this to line up with these shapes roughly. So I'll go into the right side view and I'll select these, hit G and Y to kind of bring it to that edge. I'm going to hide the body here. That'll make it easier to see. G, Y, put that there. And I'll do these two. G, Y, whoops, G, Z. That moves it down there. And then G, Z to move this. And then I'll just move these out really quick. G, Y. All right. So now I can add a few edge loops. So Control R, click, move it maybe probably like right here. Control R, click, and move it right here. Control R, click, and maybe right here. Control R, click, and let's do one right here, and also right here. And that should be good enough to get a really good shape. So I'm going to just move these down. So let's see, we don't really need to stick to perfectly straight up and down, although I suppose it'll help. So I'm going to lock it in on the Z. G, Z, G, Z. And because this is low poly, your precision is not super important here. And you can, of course, come back and edit it later if it doesn't look quite right. This one, I would like to see a little bit more curvature there, so I'm going to add another edge loop and then just move that a little bit. All right, so now you can see we've got this shape, and it's just flat along at x equals 0. So I'm going to switch into face mode and select all of these faces. And then we want to make sure we can see the top. And then let's switch into top view. And then let's extrude this. So probably just want to, yeah, we can start from here. It's fine. And hit E, and then you can extrude all the way out to about here. So as you can see, this is extruding straight out rather than along the line or along this line like we ultimately want it to be. So we're going to need to scale it so that it lines up with this. So since all those faces are still selected, we can probably start by hitting G, and I'm just going to sort of move this. I'll just do it along hit Y to lock it in, and then I'm going to estimate where it is that it's about the halfway point. And then you can scale it, and you want to scale it along the Y-axis only for now. Oh, hold on, we're still in cursor mode. So I'm going to switch to median point. And then I'm going to scale along the Y, and then that should be a bit better. Okay, so I'm trying to get this. Might take us a couple tries. I'm going to move this again. Lock it to the Y first. And I'm going to just, well, yeah, I'll scale it just a little bit more in the Y. Okay, so that's probably good. And then we can view it from a different angle. And now the last thing is that it's just too thick. So we can fix the thickness of this by, let's go into the front view, and I'll hide these other two views, and I'll go into the front view, and then I'm going to just take a look at this. It looks like I just need to scale it in the Z-axis. And I wasn't perfect when I was making this this schematic for you, so just know that it may not line up flawlessly. But there we have a wing. And the last thing we need to do, actually, let's rename this wing. And let's add a modifier. Click this little gear icon, and we'll add a mirror modifier. And it's okay that this goes straight through the center, into the center of the plane. It's really not a big deal. Or it shouldn't be. If it is, then we can always move it. But we have it going through the body, so you won't actually see that. Now, if you were adding textures to this, then maybe you would want to move it out so that the entire texture was shown and you weren't having a lot of hidden geometry, but for now, this works. So we can hit Tab, and we're out. So that's the wings. And we have a couple other wings to worry about now, and that's the back part here. So let's start working on that. So we need the right view to see this properly. And what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to switch into, oh, sorry, I have the wrong thing selected. If you select the right reference image and then you go into here, I'm going to try and change my, sorry, this one. I'm going to change it so that it's not in front anymore. And just maybe that'll be a little easier to edit. I hit tab. And then I think what I'll do is I'll extrude. How do I want to do this? So it's not 100% clear to me how I want to do this yet. What I'll do is I'll extrude both of these, and we'll extrude them along their z-axis. It'll be fine, like this. And that's probably not quite what we want. We probably want it to be a little more flat than that. So what we'll do is here's a little trick. If you do, let's see, if you change this transform orientation to the normal, then you can hit G and Z, and then it'll move along this axis instead of the global axis. So I'm going to move this down around there. And then I want this line along here to be completely flat. So I'm going to shift select both of these, and we're going to switch into 3D cursor, switch this back to global. And then what we want to do is essentially flatten this line. And the way that you can do that is you can hit S to scale. We want to lock it in the X axis. This red axis along here is the one we want. So I'll hit X, and then you can see that it scales it out like this. But if you type in 0, I guess that works. That probably wasn't what I wanted. Right click to undo that. Okay, we want this to be probably median point. All right, so we'll scale this on it. Oh boy. Escape again. Okay, this is what we want. We want to hit S and then X and then 0. Whew. Okay, sorry about that. All right, so now we have this flat thing. So it's parallel with this axis. So we can do G, X, and then we can move it in so that it's nice and close. So now we've got this better looking plane, and we can move this. In fact, let's see if we just move these guys up. I'm going to go to the right view, and I have that little edge selected, and I'm going to just move it up here. And I think I might be able to get away with it here too. Perfect. Now the last thing is just to select that little baby edge in there. Go back, and I'm just going to move it to something like that. All right, now this edge is going to be a little weird, but we're going to, or this face, because it's kind of doesn't have an edge here right now, but we're going to triangulate this at some point, so it'll automatically add an edge for us. Okay, so we have this. That looks pretty good. We need to get a rear wing in. I don't know what that's actually called. I am not a plane expert, but I think the top ref view is probably going to be the most helpful for that. But we'll look at it from the right first, because I think if we hide this, it'll probably be easy to just create another plane. Let me think. Now let's create an object. So we're going to add a cube. And this one is going to be really quite simple. So I'm going to hit tab to go into edit mode. And then I'm going to see if I can just select vertices. And we're not going to mirror this one. It's just going to, so select both of those with clicking and dragging, hit G. And then we want to do it along the Y-axis. So we'll hit Y. I'm going to select these two, G, Y, get it to right about there. Select these two, G, Z, move it to about there, and then G, Z to move this down here. So now if we go into the top view, 7, we can come in and fix this to make it look a little better. So what I want to do is I'm going to select just these ones, and we're still in this X-ray mode so that we can select all of them at once. I'm going to move this to probably, I'll use the click Y to, or hit Y to sort of lock it in. I'm going to do it like this, and you'll see why in just a minute. G, Y, and then I'm going to select all of these, and then I'm going to scale it on the X-axis until they come in like that. Now, what I'll do is I'll click Control R, that's going to add an edge loop, and then I'll right click to place it, and then I'm going to scale this along the Y-axis until I get like up there, and then I guess I can move this down with G, Y to like right there. I'll hit Tab and go out, and it looks like that worked. So hide our reference images. Whoops, we still need a body and the wing. And I'll move out of this mode, this X-ray mode, and now you can see we've got this rear wing thing. So things are looking pretty good. The last two things that remain are the landing gear and the propeller. Okay. Now we need to do the landing gear and the propeller. I did forget to rename this, so let's call this rear wing. If you know what that's actually called, let me know in the comments. Or just call it whatever you want. All right, so we're going to add our propeller first, probably, because that's going to be the harder of the two. So let's go to the top reference view, and we're going to go to top view. And what we want to do is create, what I found worked well when I was testing this before is to make a hexagon, actually. So, or a hexagonal sort of cone. So the way we're going to do that is go to Add, Mesh. We're going to add a cylinder. Okay, and so the cylinder's way out here. And here's a trick. So first we'll change the vertices to 6 and hit Tab. And we want the radius to be something small. So you can maybe set this to, I don't know, 0.2. Probably 0.1. But we'll modify this in a sec. We can move this sort of by clicking and dragging in here until it gets to about the right spot. So probably centered on here. So now we can look at this. We want to rotate this around the x-axis 90 degrees. And then we can see that it's way too long. So again, we can click and sort of drag in here to get it to be about the size we want. And ignore the fact that this isn't coming out all the way. We can modify the body to match up with it. So I'm going to move this just a little bit more so that it lines up with my drawing. And then I'll increase the radius just a tiny bit too. Okay, so this cylinder is now ready. As soon as you edit out of this, you should know that this is going to, you won't have these options again. Actually, let's fill this with nothing too, because that'll just save us one extra step. All right, so as soon as you click away, now we've got this shape. And we want to, the first thing we want to do is select it. I'm going to go into top ref, and I'm going to change this to be not in front as well. That'll make things easier to work with. So we want to hit Tab on this, and we want to scale all of these vertices so that we can, so that it's about the size of that cone. So I'm going to go into the top view, select these vertices. Oh, now I didn't get all of them because I wasn't in X-ray mode, so let's try again. And then hit S, and I'm going to scale it on the X-axis to be right there. Clearly I didn't mirror this perfectly when I was making these lines on the plane, so you're just going to have to be okay with that. Now we have this. That wasn't what I wanted. Let's undo that. Let's go back up to the top view, and we need to scale it, but we just want to not scale it in the Y direction. So hit Shift Y, and then that should lock it in properly. And let's view it. Yeah, that worked. All right, so we want to extrude these propeller blades, but we don't really have anything good to extrude from just yet. So what we'll do is I'll switch back into this mode. I'm going to hit Control R, and I'm going to move this like right here so that it's kind of lining up with that spot. Then we can switch into face mode. I hit the 3 key, or you can click that. And then we want to extrude this. I'll view it from the top. We'll extrude, and I'm going to extrude in the X direction, maybe about to here. And then I'm going to scale this in the X so that it is, and then I'll type in 0 so that it's nice and flat. Then I want to probably, well, I'll just worry about these two vertices here, so this edge, and I'll go back into the top view, and I'm going to move this along the Y axis by hitting Y to like right there. And then I'll do the same thing with this. Click that, G, Y, move it like that. So now back into face mode, the 3 key. I'm going to extrude this once and extrude it again. And then I'm going to hit S. I'm going to scale it in the Y axis a bit. And then I'm going to hit G and move it in the Y axis a bit. So now we've got a propeller that looks pretty good from the top. And then I'm going to go to the front view and hit the 1 key. And let's make sure that I can see the front. So this is because we created this from the top, we didn't see that this wasn't actually in line with where this needs to be. Fortunately, easy enough to fix. So let's make sure that this front ref, let's see here. Oh, because I'm here, hit tab, you'll exit out of edit mode, then click front ref, and then we can change this in front thing. All right, let's go click on this shape again, tab to go back in. We'll hit A to select everything, and then we will move it up G. Sorry, just realized that because, hit tab to go out, because it's not in front, we can't see it anymore. Let's see, if we do this, okay, that's helpful. So we can go into X-ray mode to get around this issue. So tab again, G, Z, and then we'll move this up to be about in line with where we expect that propeller to be. So now I'm going to just switch into vertex mode, and we're gonna just go like this. G, Z, move this down, G, Z, move this up. Probably want to tighten these in. So I'll actually select both of them, S, and I'll just do this in the the Z axis. So I'll hit Z, and then that kind of pinches them in like that. So now we've got a decent looking propeller. This looks a little bit too fat for my liking, so I'm going to select both of these, and I'm going to hit G, Y, and just kind of, oh, that's pretty good. You can fiddle with this if you want to get more out of it, but I'm satisfied with that. So I'll switch out of X-ray mode. Now I'm going to select these faces because we don't need them. we're going to mirror this propeller. So I will hit X, delete the faces. We probably want to add faces for the front and back. So click into edge mode and then select each of these edges by shift selecting, and then hit F to add that face. Same thing here. F. And now we can just mirror this. Let's rename this really quick. Propeller. And then we can add this mirror modifier. And tab, and we're out. We're out of edit mode again. So that's pretty cool. The only problem we have here is that this rotation is kind of locked in here. See, these ones are all rotation of, well, I can't select that from behind this plane. These are all a rotation of 0, 0, 0 and a scale of 1, 1, 1, which is great, except for this propeller, because we told the cylinder tool to make it rotate. We want to lock this in. So you can hit, I think there's a couple ways to do this. So one is Object, Apply, Rotation, and that will lock it in there. The other one is Control A, and then that's the shortcut for it. You can lock in Apply Rotation. When I got to the end of this tutorial, I realized that I forgot one step, and that is to make sure we set the origin of this propeller correctly. So this propeller, if you select it, you'll see that it has this little yellow dot here, and that represents the origin, meaning that any rotations will happen around that. So if you were to hit R to rotate and then Y, you would see that it rotates around this dot instead of around the center of the propeller. So we want to fix that. It's pretty simple. So what I'll do is I'm going to hide the body because we need to have a better view of it from behind. And then I'll hit Tab. I'll switch into edge mode and select this edge. And basically what we want to do is set it to the center of this edge. And the easiest way I know to do that is to use Shift S to pull up this menu. We want to move the cursor to selected, and that'll just move it to the center of this edge. And then you can hit Tab again and go to Object, Set Origin, Origin to 3D Cursor. And now if we rotate this around the y-axis again, it's going to rotate as we expected it to. And then you can reset the position of the cursor just by doing Shift C, and that's going to reset that to where it was. So now our propeller should be working correctly, and we can unhide the body and carry on. Okay, so now we've got the propeller. Let's come back into the body before we forget, and we will move this part forward. So I'm going to just, maybe I'll go into top view. I'll hit G, Y, and we can move this right up there. That looks all right. I think I would like to see, I'm going to switch into edge mode. I'm going to move this along the x-axis a little bit. Maybe like that. Looks a little better. And I'll hit Tab. All right. So now the final thing we need to do is the landing gear. So let's start building that from the right side, because I think that's going to be an easier way to do it. So we're going to probably hide the body and the wing and the rear wing for now, and the propeller. We'll view this from the right side. And then what I'll do is I'm going to do Shift A to create a new cube. I'll hit Tab. We're going to hit S to scale this way down. G, we'll move it like right here. Probably like right there. And then just to make sure that this is in the right spot, we'll go to our front view and we'll move this in the front view as well. Kind of like right. Maybe right there. I guess I'll place it like this, and then I'll quickly go into face mode really quick and go to the front view again, and then GX to move this here. All right, that's pretty good. I might select that first, the top of the box, and just move it up with GZ. Okay, so that looks pretty good. Let's switch into X-ray mode and go into vertex mode and just move this so that it's, let's see, along the hit Y, and then we'll move this GY here, and then we'll go into edge mode, Control R, and we'll place maybe one like right here, Control R, probably right here, Control R, and honestly this one's probably overkill, so I'm gonna right click and just cancel that one out. So now we've got this shape, so let's switch back into the side view. I'm gonna go into vertex. We're going to move this down by hitting G, Z, G, Z. Now this is a part of the plane that probably no one's going to pay any attention to, so I'm not going to spend much time making this look very good. All right, and then I think what I want to do here is switch into face mode, switch out of X-ray mode, and select this, and I'm going to extrude this just a little bit. I'm going to pick this bottom edge and move it up with G and Z just to kind of make a little shape there that we can work with. And then I'm going to hit 3, select this face, and then I'm going to go into front view, and I'm going to extrude it, and then probably hit G and move it roughly over here. So I think if I go into X-ray mode, I made this a little too thick, so we can probably fix this pretty easily by adding an edge loop. So I'm going to hit Control R, and I'm going to add this edge loop here, and I'm going to select this entire face ring. If I hit Alt or hold Alt and click, then it should select all 4 of these faces around the ring, and then I can go into the side view and I can scale this along the Y axis, hitting Y, and then kind of fit this here. And hit Tab, and that landing gear looks perfectly adequate. All right, let's call this landing gear, and we will add a modifier to this gear part, and we'll add a mirror modifier over the X. So now we should be able to hide all our reference images, show all of our, let's see, all of our shapes here. Did I just unhide a reference image? And switch into here. Let's see, which one did I undo? Landing gear. All right, so there is a pretty good looking plane. Now I want to switch into this, switch this into matte cap really quick, and let's do, well, we can do clay or this kind of glass one. Let's do this glass one. So what we can do is we can triangulate this to make it, to give it a bit more of that low poly look. This looks pretty good right now, but we can make it a little better. So if we right click on this, left click on this, tab A to select all, and then we go to face, and we can triangulate faces. Okay, so then if I hit tab again, you'll see that it added some faces that make it look kind of nice. And another tip, you can pick a vertex, G, and then I'll move it into Z to kind of give this even a little more life. GZ, just a tiny bit. And you can see that what that did was it added a bit more geometry looking stuff to it so that it looks pretty smooth. So I'll do the same thing here. GZ, just to move that down, GZ. And just adding this little bit of variation, really it's subtle, but it seems to make quite a difference in how things look ultimately. So this, probably move this up just a tiny bit. So I'm just doing G and Z this whole time, nothing too fancy. And maybe like G and X, to just pull that out, G and X. So yeah, now we've got this nice looking kind of low poly. You can see all the triangles. I think it looks pretty nice. I'm gonna move one more, GX. Yeah, that looks really good. Okay, so the wing, this one we want to triangulate as well. Let's see how that looks. If we come into here, hit A, go into face mode, and hit face, triangulate faces. Looks fine. I think that's probably what we want ultimately. I think if we were to add more, then it might look a little unnatural. A plane's wing should be pretty flat. This one, we'll do the same thing, hit A and do face, triangulate faces. And by the way, to deselect, you can hit Alt A, Alt A. So it just selects all of them. And then actually, let's see, can I maybe pick that vertex? I kind of clicked through. You can hide the body if you want to see. And I'm going to just lift this up a little bit with G and Z just to see if that adds a little bit of polygonalness to it. Looks like it did, which is nice. Maybe I'll just move this one. I'll do G and Z and I'll move it down a little bit. And that might just sort of emphasize the difference. Bring the body back. And then we have to do this with this one. So I'll do this. I'll hit A. We'll go to face, triangulate faces. And let's move some of these. So I'm going to do GX. Kind of pull this in. I should probably pull both of them. GX. GX. Whoops. GX. Probably a little bit bowed out. I might be able to kind of mess with this a little bit. But like I'm already falling for the trap. I said before, no one's going to look at this, and that's probably true, so I really need to not worry about this at all. All right, that looks pretty decent. And then this guy right here, I don't think we really need to do anything to make it more look more low poly. We just want to triangulate faces. Otherwise, Unity's going to do it for us, so we might as well do it ahead of time. All right, so there's our airplane. It's ready for export at this point. I'm going to view it with another matte cap because I like the way this red one looks. Just looks really nice. Now, make sure to save your work. So I haven't done that yet, so I've been playing with fire here. So I'm going to save as, and I'm going to call this plain low poly, and it looks like I already have one, so I'm going to just call this tutorial. And then you can export it. Now to export this properly to Unity, you want to make sure you don't export the reference images because those will end up being exported. So what you want to do is go to this, you hit Control, sorry, is it Shift? Well, let's just click and drag and select all of them in object mode. And so these are all the things that we want to export. We'll go to File, Export, FBX, and then the changes you want to make here are, we want selected objects. So that'll just only export the things we selected. And then we're going to use experimental apply transform. I have a YouTube video that I'll link to in the description that will show you how you can fix this for in another way. But for this one, since we have no animations on this thing, we don't need to worry about the armatures. Like if you hover over this, it warns you about how using this with armatures and animations doesn't work. But like I said, we don't have any. So we can just click this box and then export. And then you can import this into Unity and see what it looks like. And if you're curious what this would look like in Unity, this is this isn't the exact version we just made in this video. This is one I made previous, but it's essentially exactly the same. All I did was I applied a couple of materials to this. You can see that this has kind of got a glossy material. It's not metallic at all. And then this black material on the propeller. And as long as you have your scene set up properly with good lighting, then it should look like this. I think I have some post-processing effects onto some anti-aliasing that may be helping smooth out these edges. But that's it. So this is part of a larger course that I'm making, and you're free to check that out once it's available. I hope that you found this really valuable and that you're interested in continuing the course. So thanks for watching. And of course, if you have any questions or comments or feedback or anything, let me know in the comments. Thanks.